And what would you say are the biggest skills that a freelancer SEO needs to thrive in this industry?
Definitely the sales part. I would say getting a good source of leads. You also need to understand how to delegate and outsource and train people. And obviously the SEO part, I always say like the SEO part's the easy part. It's everything else that's more challenging. So I think it's just, you have to understand and become a business owner and understand SEO is more than just SEO. It's the outsourcing, it's the learning, it's the delegating, it's setting realistic expectations, good reporting, things like that.
Welcome to the Agency Growth Series.
The podcast dedicated to setting up, running, and scaling your SEO agency.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Agency Growth Series. And today we have a very special guest, Peter Rota. The topic of today's conversation will be the unconventional SEO. So how Peter Rota built a freelance career in SEO through deep work, obsession, and thinking differently. So today is a bit of a special topic. I'm very excited to talk about it. And welcome to the show, Peter. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to be here and always enjoy talking about SEO.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited about today's conversation. And my first question is, when you look back at the early years of your SEO career, because you've been in this for quite a long time now, what was the thing you were most obsessed about that other people around you seem to be a bit unbothered by?
I don't know if there's one specific thing, but I've always been kind of obsessed with learning new things, especially in SEO, and just kind of, I think it's important that you basically stay up, I guess, above the edge or on top of like your game in SEO, because like it changes so fast. And if you don't really, I wouldn't say you have to love change, but you need to be able to adapt pretty fast and be able to test things and move pretty quickly. So I think with SEO, I've always been just interested in learning as much as possible and challenging myself and I like to be challenged and continue to learn as much as I can, and then always try to test new things. So I guess a combination of those three.
Did you always find yourself in technical SEO as your specialty, or did you try other types of SEO first before landing into
Uh,
this?
yeah, initially I started working on basically a blog or website, and I was looking for ways to promote it. And it was a lot of on page, off page. I didn't really get into technical, I would say. I've always done it, but I wouldn't say I focused heavily on it till probably the last 4.5 years. But I like it a bit more because it forces you to think about a lot of different things, and I feel like it's a lot more fresh versus a lot of on page or off page where it comes more monotonous. And I just think it's even more important now with like LLMs, and then I've also learned a lot with it for like JavaScript SEO. So I've enjoyed it more because it's a bit more challenging and keeps things fresh.
You say that with the rise of LLMs, technical SEO has become more important recently?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. In what aspects?
I think just people always need to be checking their crawl logs a bit more. I think that was brought up before, but it wasn't really in focus. And there's a lot more emphasis now on page speed, specifically time to first byte. I think with Google, obviously you could get away with it more because they have an index versus if your LLMs are fetching you in real time, and if you're not loading fast enough, you're kind of getting excluded from the sources. So definitely things there too. And then also like AI mode, and then AIO. So just really having the best technical experience possible. And now too with like MCPs, and I forgot the name of it, but basically there's these tools where the LLMs actually navigate your site and complete requests too. So they're important there too. So I think just it's kind of brought almost a resurgence in tech SEO where it's like a lot of people think it's like not important, and I've even posted stories and things on LinkedIn about it where it's like I worked on a site with like 10 pages and tech SEO was important. So nice to get appreciated again, because people are like, oh, it's not fun or sexy, but I'm like, it's definitely required. Like I've could give you like a few scenarios in my job where like it's been super important. So yeah, it's definitely, I always found it important.
Yeah, and I'm guessing with the rise of LLM made websites as well, whereby, I've told you this, we just did a migration over using Claude and Astro. And I always kept that in mind of like, okay, the technical SEO side of things, it needs to be there. But if you don't prompt it properly or understand what needs to be there, it will literally just create junk. Do you see a lot of
Yes.
that now working with those types of websites?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely seeing a lot of client side, at least lovable things that are just like, oh, it looks great, but it's blind. I mean, it's like blind LLM. So yeah, I mean, I think these tools, it's like they're very helpful, but if you don't have a baseline knowledge, you're gonna end up wasting all this time and effort. So you need to at least have some knowledge before using them.
On to my next question. When you're in the middle of a technical overhaul for a freelance client, and one of them I saw was a pretty big one, was one that drove 209K to 565K visits for
Yes.
a particular men's health site. What does that work look like on a daily basis as an SEO freelancer?
Yeah, sure. So for that specific client, they kind of came to me basically and were like, our traffic has kind of like been going down for a while and they wanted me to pretty much evaluate it. So I ran a pretty thorough SEO audit, kind of looking at their on page, off page, technical SEO, and a lot of it was just better internal linking. Meta titles weren't super optimized. They had content that was only loaded via JavaScript. That was pretty important. So I basically told them to render it in the HTML source versus just the rendered HTML. And I basically provided mostly a framework and met with them, and they were the ones that actually implemented it. But I did follow up with them a few months later and to kind of get an idea, and they said they definitely saw results and were getting more people to the website. But as far as like the day to day, I mean, at least in my job, I've done some pretty thorough tech audits where essentially I will do an audit of the site, kind of a mix of Screaming Frog, Google Search Console, and some other tools and extensions. And then I work in enterprise SEO, so it's a lot of just creating Jira tickets and then unfortunately waiting months and sometimes years for those to get implemented. And yeah, I mean, in addition to that, just looking for new things that help drive the needle. So I've done a lot with like internal linking or internal linkings. And then we've done a lot with like product and service pages where we'll basically improve the title tags, H1s, and then kind of some content refreshes and then some SEO testing as well. So kind of just tried to be creative and keep coming up with things after the initial SEO audit.
You've mentioned there actually, so you're running a full-time in-house role on top of being a freelancer simultaneously. How do you
Yes.
actually protect the kind of focused, deep work that produces results like the ones we just cited, or 442% traffic increase when your attention is divided among these two roles, which, obviously full-time role on top of being a freelancer? Like, how do you find the time to do that kind of deep work?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't say it's too hard. I mean, for the, like my day-to-day job, I'm pretty focused when I'm doing that. So I've often doing like Pomodoros or focus boosters and focusing on that. And then I'm working on like the freelance, usually either before work, after work, or on the weekends. And yeah, I mean, I definitely work a lot of hours for sure, but I would say it's worth it because I feel like I'm able to get the benefits and salary of like a full-time job, but then I'm also being challenged on the side too and kind of can make additional money. I think initially I did it because I had gotten laid off from a job in like 2015 and I was like, I am never gonna like have someone else decide my income. So I really just stayed with it and just enjoyed. And I feel like I've always been able to bring kind of new experiences or knowledge to my full-time job. So definitely something I recommend, but I also don't have a kid and a girlfriend and a family right now, so I have a bit more time, but I could see it definitely being more challenging if you have like a family and girlfriend and everything going on. So yeah, I mean, and I probably work over like 70 hours a week too. So you definitely need to be committed to it.
Right. So long story short, just put in the hours, right?
Yes, and then I mean, I also have like a few freelancers slash VAs, and I've been using AI more, so it's trying to just also automate and outsource things so you can focus on like what's most important.
We're going to get back to the AI part, obviously, part of any conversation now these days. But yeah, so based on what I've researched from you, it seems like you lean more into depth over volume, and most freelancers scale by taking on more clients. What has leaning into depth over volume cost you, perhaps personally, professionally as well, and what has it protected? How has it helped you in your freelance journey?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I guess, like how it's helped is clients definitely feel like they get more of a relationship, and I'm not trying to just make a quick buck or BS clients. I mean, I've spoken like how I basically talked some clients out of SEO, not because I didn't want the money, but I just felt like I'm not going to sell you something you don't need. So there's that. But it's also definitely cost me too because I had so many leads. There's so many things going on at one point where I lost a potential like e-commerce client, which was probably going to be at least $3,000 a month and just like a retainer. So it's definitely been good and bad. But I think my situation that's like, I also have the full-time job, so I can build more relationship versus someone that if they're freelancing or doing agency, that's their sole income. And it's like if they don't sign a client, they won't be able to eat or not. Maybe not eat, but they won't be able to have the money and be able to pay certain bills and whatnot.
You focus on developing long-term partnerships with the clients you work with, as opposed to shorter types of SEO projects.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly a bit of both. I obviously prefer longer engagements because the cash flow is a bit more predictable, but I also do a good amount of one-offs where it's like we want an audit and I'll basically do it and implement it, and then they kind of take it from there because sometimes they just don't have the budget or they just sometimes they have an in-house team. So yeah, it really just depends on the client and what they want and their needs.
And you've mentioned this in your previous answer, but you've been public about turning down SEO like projects with some clients, or even I think I saw it as a 3.5K
Yeah.
SEO audit for a client with unrealistic expectations. My question to you is, what specifically makes an expectation unrealistic versus just ambitious?
Yeah, so I mean, for that specific example, I wouldn't necessarily say they were unrealistic. So I can give you the background. Is this gentleman, he actually does SEO himself, and his background is primarily on page. So he just kind of was looking for more of a second pair of eyes to kind of get a better overview of his technical SEO. And I mean, I probably looked at it a few hours and I didn't see anything that like popped out to me that like this site needs technical SEO. And a lot of times some clients have been maybe almost not scared or maybe kind of prompted into needing a technical SEO audit when they didn't really need it. So I think it was for me being realistic on what he actually needed versus what he may have thought he needed. So I'm actually probably going to start to work on that specific client this week, but I think it was just speaking to them what is actually important slash what they need versus like getting a core web vital as like 100 or something. So I think there's a point where it almost comes to a doing busy work versus something where it's like this is actually going to impact and make the site better SEO slash tech wise.
And speaking of your working style, so no BS approach, you turn down some projects.
Yep.
You try to keep it as real as it is. And one part of that I saw was that you sometimes push back on raw traffic as a success metric. Yet some of your most prominent case studies lead with dramatic traffic numbers. How do you reconcile those two things when you're talking to a prospective client?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those case studies, I would say traffic was still a massive thing versus I feel like it's still important now, but you need to understand the other KPIs too. So I mean, I would think it's a mix of just understanding what drives the KPIs for clients. I mean, I think at least a lot with LinkedIn's case studies, it's like they lead with traffic, but they don't share any other KPIs, or it's like I'll lead with traffic, but I try to share the other KPIs that are important, like revenue too. So I think everything is about the context, and um, the only thing that really matters is the bottom line. So it's like, here we did this traffic increase, but it's like, what actually happened to like the revenue too?
So you get most of your leads from your LinkedIn presence, which you have a lot of followers, like 80 or 90K
Uh,
followers.
yeah, I think I'm at like 81K plus, but yeah, it's I mean a mix of LinkedIn. I've done some through Upwork, and then also like I've done a good amount of white labeling. So I've worked with some other SEOs kind of doing SEO audits for those clients. So that's been like a good source of revenue as well. So um, definitely like kind of a mix at this point, but I would say LinkedIn and Upwork have probably been the most reliable.
It's clear to me from, what you're saying in the 70 hours a week, which
Yeah.
is, phenomenal. You specialize, your angle is obsessive deep work type of approach, and what you describe as your edge.
Yeah.
At what point, and this is more of a personal question, like at what point in your career did it stop being purely an asset and start costing you something more personally?
Ooh, good question. I mean, probably say a little bit before COVID, because I kind of got more interested in heavily freelancing, and then I was trying to date too. So I was like, I want to date, but then I want to make money. So I had a girlfriend, like, we broke up like a few months ago, but I was balancing kind of doing the freelance and having a relationship too. So I think for me, it's been more focusing on outsourcing and kind of building systems versus just I'm going to keep taking on all this work and I don't care if something else suffers. So at least this year, I mean, I like I mentioned, I broke up with my girlfriend right now 2 months ago. So this point, it's more just focusing on, I think, work and doing a lot of self improvement stuff and just overall getting more comfortable outsourcing work because I've realized that I am probably my biggest bottleneck because I can have all this work, but if I don't outsource it, I can't really grow. So it's definitely been hard for me because I just want to take on all the work, but I realize that the more work I take on, it actually prevents me. And then sometimes if I take on work that doesn't pay me a ton, I'm almost costing myself because it's like, here's a bigger job. Like I mentioned, that retainer that I lost, like I lost that because of like a more low cost job. So yeah, I mean, the last year it's been a lot of just self reflecting and realizing like what's actually important. And I mean, I'm not someone that's like obsessed with balance. I feel like in life and SEO, it's a lot of spurts versus like I need perfect balance. So I think it's a lot of been me like recalculating and rethinking a lot of my priorities.
Do you think that the self-reflection, this what you're going through, the struggles that come with SEO freelancing because you're on your own is an
Yeah.
inevitable part to this job? Do you feel like a lot of other freelancers go through the same journey that you're going through?
Yes. I mean, I think there's like different stages of being a freelancer where it's like you're learning, you can't get any clients, and then you kind of almost reach a point where it's like you're getting work and then you're forced to almost outsource because if you keep taking on the work and don't allocate it or outsource it to someone else, you can't really grow. So I think it's a part of freelance or even agency where it's like you maybe just start on your own, like I'm an agency and doing every work, and then you have to hire other people. So I think it's an inevitable step that all SEOs slash any freelancers run into at some point.
And I mean, you're working full time now, but do you ever consider moving full time to freelancing, or maybe even opening your own agency and hiring people to help you and delegate this work too?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely thought about it a lot. I mean, personally, I'm not the greatest at sales, so it's been hard for me to close, I guess, enough leads or clients that I would be able to basically be making more than I am in my full-time job. So, I'm actually in an SEO sales course right now, which I think is helping. But yeah, I mean, sales is always, I mean, it's probably a lot of SEOs kind of struggle with sales. So, I mean, it's definitely been something that's like most challenging for me to just get a consistent stream of clients per se.
And you have to do, I'm guessing, over the last few years, a lot of like self-teaching in terms of sales, or even join classes, or is that like the number one skill that you're trying to now cultivate is sales?
I mean, it's something I realized was my issue before, but I think it's something I'm more heavily focused on now because I mean, I would do all these presentations and everything, and I was like, I feel like this is good, and I feel like a lot of thing too, and it's partially related to sales is like I'm focused on clients that actually have money. So I've worked with a lot of local SEO in the past, and I feel like a lot of the niches they didn't have a ton of money, so it was hard to sell someone that just doesn't have the money for your services versus like I don't know, maybe an attorney that's like has more clients and they actually have money for your services. So I think that's been part of my sales process too, where it's like versus like I end up creating a pitch or something and they're like, oh, like I don't have the money or this is too expensive.
How do you go about pricing your offering? Actually, is it per hour? Do you base it on value? Has it changed over the last few years or maybe months?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the specific project or type of work. I mean, SEO audits, I will charge usually based on kind of project fee, and then the implementation's usually hourly, or it's through an Upwork, or if it's a retainer, I'm usually kind of doing 3 different packages a month. So it really just depends on me figuring out what their needs are and then kind of pricing it based on that. But I mean, on Upwork, there is you can charge via like hourly or project, but I generally prefer you kind of have to figure out like what would be more money. Like if it's a project and you realize it's going to be a lot of time, then I might go with hourly versus like if it's not going to be a ton of hours, I might just do projects. So a lot of just like thinking about like calculating what's just the most advantageous or the most way you'll make the most money.
When you made the switch over to freelancing, how did you go about finding the first few clients? And also you talk about now you get a lot of your clients from Upwork,
Yeah.
but there's so much noise on Upwork. You're competing with the rest of the world. People are undercutting like crazy. And also they're willing to say yes to any project, even if it has, BS intentions behind it. Whereas you say, no, how did you go about establishing yourself as a freelancer and getting all these leads?
Yeah, so I mean, I did what a lot of people do is basically I set up a local freelance. I created a Google My Business location and optimized that a bit, and I was able to get some leads there. And then I also have a website where I've optimized a bit. I haven't gone super hard on like the off page, but I did set up like a few location pages and I've gotten some leads through there. Also was able obviously to do Upwork. So initially what I did on there was kind of take on some more low level jobs just to kind of build up the experience and get some feedback, which helped. And then probably I think 2021 I moved to like LinkedIn and started posting on there, which is how me get clients. And then also through some digital PR, like podcasting, I've gotten some leads through there too. So, um, kind of just having like what they call like a flywheel. So just kind of optimizing and being visible on multiple channels versus just picking one channel to focus my efforts on.
Well, thank you for sharing that also on the personal side of things. I know you share about that a lot on your LinkedIn. So anyone listening to this, I find your LinkedIn posts to be so varied. You talk about so many different things and they're so much more relatable than just what everyone else posts about. We could feel with the struggle and the things you've gone through and your life experiences. Sorry about your relationship.
Oh, so
That's, And I know you also, maybe if Nick Lachey is listening to this, I know you said you would like to go on Love is Blind. So let's hope that he's listening to this.
God, yeah, that'd be wild.
Well, I'll be rooting for you. Anyway, so to get back to more of the core topic, if you had to identify the single belief about SEO that is most widely held by experienced practitioners, but is also wrong, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest misconception, at least maybe not now as much as people realize it, but I think it was the fact that like traffic is everything, and we've realized now that like traffic's still important, but if you're not visible in LLMs, you're not going to really be successful. I think another one was also people realizing is that there's they actually, at least now, they actually have to know marketing beyond just SEO. So I think there's a lot of people evolving their skill sets and just being competent, and probably those two. And just, I don't think people are to lose their jobs necessarily because of AI, but there's definitely some responsibilities that are being outsourced to AI. So people just really need to be on top of their stuff and keep learning.
And in all of your years freelancing, you've worked on different types of businesses and different sizes, ranging from local shops to S&P 500
Yeah.
companies. What did the smaller scale work teach you? Something that the enterprise couldn't, and vice versa, perhaps, in terms of your SEO work?
Yeah, I mean, with the local stuff, you tend to, I would say, get results faster, and it's more you're working with one person versus enterprise. It's a lot more reporting and storytelling, and Jira tickets and things move a lot slower. So it's kind of like you just need to understand the corporate game and kind of understand that things are going to be a bit slower, and just really just communication is key versus like if you're doing local SEO, you're working with one person, you're emailing them, it's kind of back and forth versus like enterprise where like I mentioned a bit earlier where it's like you put in a Jira ticket and maybe sometimes it takes months, years and more to get work done. So I think it's a lot more having patience as enterprise versus like local SEO where things tend to get done a lot faster and you tend to get quicker results.
Is there a specific type of SEO work you prefer doing over others in terms of industry or size of the company and whatnot?
Good question. I mean, I definitely like e-commerce a bit more because they tend to have more money, but I also enjoy the enterprise too, just because it's not like super fast paced where I've worked in-house in agencies where it's been so fast paced that like I couldn't even like breathe. And I wrote a post where I actually only worked for a company for 2 weeks because it was too fast and I just quit.
I
So
remember that.
yeah, I mean, I would say definitely probably enterprise and then e-commerce SEO.
And you already said this in one of your previous answers, but now SEO work, I mean, it goes beyond, right, just Google. You have
Yeah.
to think about, and clients are demanding that, and for better or for worse, whatever your beliefs are on all of that.
Yeah.
We want to be visible on ChatGPT and so on and so forth, which calls for different types of skill sets. And perhaps, working with different types of agencies that specialize in either Reddit or YouTube, depending on where you want to be visible. How has that affected your job specifically?
Yeah, I mean, on my full-time job, we've been focusing more on being active on Reddit, and then we've been doing a lot more YouTube. So I'll often get like webinars or videos from like the business line. I'll have to like do a transcript and optimize those things. I think also through building my personal brand, I've learned a lot of that naturally, where it's like I've done an AMA where basically I was asked kind of about like how I got into SEO, my experience. So I've learned through there. I've also done podcasting and done like some featured.com links. So I've kind of learned it naturally through maybe not having to prioritize it. So Yeah, I'd probably just say those things.
And early on in your career, when you started freelancing, did you, because, like they always say niche down
Yeah.
into a specific industry or specific vertical. I mean, you chose technical SEO, but it also seems like you worked on different types of SEO.
Yeah.
Did you apply that same reasoning when you started off, or did you just say, I'm going to go for any type of industry and work on different types of SEO? And then eventually you found yourself to really type of specialize into technical SEO, but still work across different types of industry. So I would say a bit more of a horizontal type of
Yeah.
niching, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, when I first got out, I just wanted to get as much experience as possible, and I would be doing anything from on page to outreach to technical SEO audits. So I think for me, it was just getting that skill set of the different types of SEO. And then I realized that like technical SEO was the most interesting to me. And I wanted to, at least going back to the niches, I was kind of just taking any work I could get versus now where it's like, I'm trying to focus on things that are a bit more worth my time and worth my effort and not like scam people or steal their money. So I'll turn away people if I just don't feel like they're a good fit for me.
And what would you say are the biggest skills that a freelancer SEO needs to thrive in this industry, except for working 70 hours a week and deep
Yeah,
obsessive
I
work?
mean, definitely the sales part, which obviously I told you I'm working on. So there's that. Um, I would say getting a good source of leads, so you need that. You also need to understand how to delegate and outsource and train people. And obviously the SEO part, I mean, I always say like the SEO part's the easy part is everything else that's more challenging. So I think it's just you have to understand and become a business owner and understand SEO is more than just SEO. It's the stuff I mentioned where it's the outsourcing, it's the learning, it's the delegating, it's setting realistic expectations, good reporting, things like that.
I'm guessing there must be a bit of reconciliation to be done as well with the idea that I don't want to
Yes.
like sell BS, but at the same time I need to get better at sales, which sometimes, they can kind of merge together. So it's hard sometimes because in sales, you're typically trying to sell as much as possible and sell a vision that maybe you're not able to actually deliver on. But it's definitely a tough balancing act to
Yeah.
be able to stay true to your own ethics and your values while at the same time getting better at sales.
Yeah. I mean, I've spoken like I would be awful at sales if it was my full-time job because I would be too transparent. Like, you don't actually need this product. And then Peter, like, what are you doing? Why we need the
I'm
money?
never gonna follow up. Yeah, I get
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I'll follow up, but like I tell someone they don't need something, like
Yeah.
I'm saying the truth. So yeah, it would
And
be
then I guess
definitely a
sometimes,
conflict of interest.
and do they sometimes come back to you being like, huh, you didn't want to sell us to that, so now we really want it?
Not particularly on SEO work, but I remember doing an interview many years ago for an SEO role, and I had basically said I didn't want the job, and they actually came back to me and they're like, "Are you sure? Like, we think you'd be really a good fit." So I guess that's like the closest I've been to that
It's like
aspect.
an unheard story today in today's
Yeah.
market. So that's already pretty cool. So we're coming on to our last couple questions here. So what's the version of your career you're building towards in the future? Like, where do you see yourself going?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I'd love to be doing just the freelance full time. So I think, like I've mentioned a few times, it's me getting a better foundation slash better at sales to actually be able to ramp that up. I think another thing too is just getting better at LinkedIn as far as like copywriting on some posts. I feel like that's been always important, but LinkedIn recently has squashed a lot of leads. So me focusing more on there and trying to have some more sales type posts. But I think those two things and ultimately just having a bit more balance and not working as much as I am now.
ever think about just hiring a salesperson to help you with the sales work, or are you actually dedicated to want to become a better
Uh,
salesperson?
I have not, just because I feel like I don't have enough leads that would justify it. I think if I get to a point where I have the money, then maybe I could pay someone for sales. But yeah, I mean, right now I don't see the demand, at least the need for me to be paying someone for it. And
Purely on
I
the
think
inbound
also
then.
like, sorry, what?
Purely working on the inbound. Wouldn't consider trying outbound.
I am trying a bit more. I think that's another thing I'm working towards is like I don't send a ton of DMs on LinkedIn as far as like clients. I mean, I did send a DM for a sponsored post, which I ended up getting, but yeah, it's definitely something I want to work more on without coming off as very salesy in the DMs. Like a lot of people just DM me, it's about backlinks, and I just block them immediately because they're just
The
very
dear sirs?
spammy. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You don't want to become a dear sir?
No, I mean, that's just, I feel like I want to message someone that come off as genuine. It's like, if I
Yeah,
wouldn't reply to your things, why am I going to send it to someone else?
it makes sense. Yeah. So you talked about this at the start of the conversation, but obviously you've seen, I mean, the industry, over a decade changed
Yeah.
tremendously. You also seen the rise, just not of AI search, but also just AI tools. How has AI actually changed the way you approach your work in SEO, either day to day or on your projects?
Yeah, so I would say it's kind of a mix of things. I've been using AI a lot more for kind of helping to aid and create JSON schema. So I'm not like proficient in JSON, so it's kind of helped me in kind of like making sure I'm adding a comma in the right place or just doing things faster. So I've used it there. I've gotten started to use it a bit more for internal linking for some of my projects. And basically what I'll do is like I'll give it the actual content and I'll give it the internal links and kind of give an idea of what a good anchor is, and it's been doing that a bit better. But I mean, I've spoken how like a lot of the SEO tools, they can already fill a lot of the gaps that people feel like they may need AI for. So I would definitely love to get to the point where a lot of things are more automated, but I feel like the AI tools are probably 90% of the way there, but I feel like they're not as advanced as I would like to have full confidence. And I also do get a bit concerned with the hallucinations and just even some basic SEO information is hallucinated on. So I think it definitely has its place, but you need to know what you're doing and not trust it blindly to do everything for you.
Exactly. And that's why having the experience and the knowledge about what you need to put as guardrails or checks is so
Yes.
important. And that's what I've noticed doing the migration. I'm like, I'll look at it and then I'll be like, okay, I told you to apply the best SEO best practices, but
Yeah.
obviously you didn't really know what that meant, right? So you kind of just produce garbage and then you have to go back and check it. And sometimes that takes almost just as long as if you would have done it manually from the start. So yeah,
Agreed.
that's really great. So thank you so much. That was the extent of my questions. We're about 41 minutes here, so we'll end it at that. And it's been a pleasure talking to you, Peter Rota. And if you have any parting words before we end this call.
Well, just keep learning and testing and showing up. I mean, I feel like those have been my biggest differentiators. But yeah, happy to be here and thanks again.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. And I'll link your LinkedIn URL in the description so that people can connect with you and follow you and ask you any questions if they have anything, or just get some inspiration from the stuff you've been posting, because you post very consistently and I find it very interesting. So thank you again for joining us for the Agency Growth Series. And I hope to see you on one of our next episodes. Thank you again.
Thank you.